Orientation is locked. What does that mean? Whatever. Um, I just had a talk with my MAGA buddy, and the conversation went kind of similar to how my other MAGA conversations have went. So this is a guy who claims he did not vote for Trump, but I'm not 100% sure if I believe him or not. I could definitely see him voting for Trump for sure, even if he didn't actually do it. He claims to not be a Republican, but this is a common theme, with whatever they got going on right now. No one's a Republican, right? No one's a Republican. But that is what he claims. He didn't vote for Trump, and he's not a Republican. All right, whatever. But when you talk to him, you definitely get a strong sense of leaning towards, the Republican Party for sure, leaning towards conservative for sure. So former law enforcement, does a lot of the same stuff that I do as far as business wise. So, like how I bought this home and renting it out, but then also I do a lot of stuff myself, electrical, plumbing, painting. He's me times 10 because he's been doing it for a long time. I've just been figuring this stuff out on my own. He's figured it out a long time ago and been doing it, for so many years. So just to give you a little profile. So generally what I got from the conversation was nothing really matters, right? So we talked about some of Trump's actions that he's taking, and everything there's an excuse. He downplays everything. He even does the false equivalency type thing. At one point in time in the conversation, he even suggested that we are just the same as Trump in terms of, we both agreed that Trump is self-interested. But then he says, well, you are that way and I'm that way. And then I had to push back really hard. I'm like, no, like because he's a good guy, man. He's helped me out so many times. And he's a very busy person. So taking the time out to help me out, somebody, we just met since I bought this house in the last few years. I've helped him where I can. I mean, I'm not in a state to really be helping anybody, but I also pointed out to him, I vote against my own interests. The only difference is I'm aware of it, right? Many voters vote against their own interest, but they're not aware of it. They think they're voting for their interest, but they don't. I actively and intentionally vote against my own interests. What I mean by that, my own interests align with the Republican Party, right? Because of my income and also me being a small business owner, it would make more sense to vote for Republicans because of tax breaks or whatever. But I would never vote for, or I should say, I would never vote for. I would never vote for this generation of Republicans. Prior to the MAGA movement taking over the entire party, I would vote for a Republican, in an isolated situation. So, for example, if there's a Republican running for office here locally, I would have voted for him. But now it's tricky because the Republican Party being taken over by MAGA. So if you're in the Republican Party, you're supporting this movement that's being so destructive to the country. So it's a little tough. Before it's like, we have different ideological differences, but whatever. I don't really care, Republican or Democrat. I want to know what you're gonna do, and I'll vote for you. But now, you can't. There's no more just being a Republican. That doesn't exist anymore. You can't just be a Republican because of the insanity that's happening in the party right now. By being part of the party, you're condoning it, and that's the issue that I would have. But anyway, the bottom line is why I would vote for a Democrat, even though I would never register as a Democrat, is because my concern for my community, right? Although I see the Democrats actually doing things that are hurting the community, I look at the Republicans as doing even worse. Because what happens is, to me, the Democrats at least sort of try to help the community and try to help, regular Americans, but it seems to be unserious. So it's sloppily executed, and that results in, problems that, that we're all feeling. But compared to the Republicans who would completely just betray regular people, and ironically, the branding is such that the Republican Party appeals to regular Americans, working class, and the Democrats appeal to elites. But if we put aside the branding and how they present themselves, and we focus on, hey, Danny, good to see you, man. Good to see you, Becky. If you focus on what they actually do, the Republican Party is definitely the party for the elites. It's so bizarre, man. Like, they're the party for the elites, right? They're the party that is cozying up with the richest people in the world. I mean, definitely there was some level of that in the Democrats, but not to this level. Because think about just a basic consideration. One of the reasons why all these billionaires are cozying up to Trump is because the Democrats have been pushing on them a little bit in terms of telling them, hey guys, you got to constrain what you're doing. You're going too far, blah, blah, blah. So, you see the Consumer Protection Bureau and other things that happened under Biden where they're trying to constrain corporate power to some degree. Now, they're not doing it enough for sure, but at least there's some level of effort. Republican Party? Nah. Nah. They were like, what's her name? Lena Khan. They're like, get her out of there. They ain't trying to constrain nothing. They're all in. Trump's even on social media talking about he's going to give them everything they want, fast approvals, you invest $1 billion in whatever. And, so it's just like wild, wild west. So even though the Democrats don't do enough, they at least sort of try to do a little something for regular people. So compared to me voting for Republicans, I would vote for a Democrat, right? Even though that does not help my interests, because I'm in an area where it's a tenant friendly area. So voting for Democrats is voting against my interest because the Democrats are going to pander to the tenants. They're going to violate my rights. I mean, you see you guys that follow the channel, you know what I've been through the last couple of years. I've been absolutely devastated. I've been financially devastated by the Democrats. And even after all of that, I couldn't vote for a Republican here that is going to do even more damage. And in particular, what I'm concerned about is the tenants and the community, right? So when I vote not just for the community. I'm not some Jesus, right? But I vote for the community and I vote for myself. And when I weigh those two things together, that puts me in the Democrats because for the Republican Party, the only benefit I get from that it's all for me, right? So anyway, so I said to him like, listen, man, we are not on the same level. Trump is all about himself. Like we're not psychopaths that just like focus on me, screw everybody else. No heart, no empathy for anybody else. I mean, a church lady says have compassion and he's attacking her. All these grown men attacking her. I mean, that's savage behavior. That's not how I behave. That's not how he behaves. But anyway, the general conversation was just kind of hand waving away everything. He justified everything, even when I pointed out like he's breaking the law, right? I said, look, he broke the law regarding firing the IGs. I pointed out how the IGs are there to constrain corruption from the administration. So if Trump was going to do something corrupt, these are the people to constrain him, and he's getting rid of them, which would look like what you would do if you're going to do corrupt things. I pointed out that it's against the law. He's supposed to give 30-day notice. None of this fazed him. Nothing. He didn't care. He didn't really care. Now that he said he's not overtly saying he doesn't care, but ultimately he didn't care. It was just like I could tell there's nothing I could say that would be like, oh wow, that's kind of crazy that he's doing that. Everything would be like, well, that's politicians. what you gonna do, and that's how it works. And it's just like, and I said to him, the kind of stuff that I'm pointing out to you, if anybody else was doing it, like I feel like you'd have a bigger problem with it. And I asked him, like, why is it that because it's Trump, it's like no, there's no line, there's no like line he can't cross. It's just like he could do exactly the same stuff that a leader in another country does, that we all would agree like that is crazy what he's doing. He's an authoritarian or whatever. He's a fascist or whatever. But Trump could do the exact same things here, and for Trump it's maybe Biden did the same thing. And yeah, he brought up Biden. Oh my goodness, he brought up Biden. I cut that off real quick. I'm like, Biden is not the president. And I told him I'm not a fan of Biden. I don't like Biden. When Biden was president, I had problems with him. I called out what they were doing. But Trump is the president right now. You know, you can't change the topic. The general thing that I got from the conversation also is that he doesn't seem to realize how bad things have gotten. But I don't know what the term is, where it's like, is it wanton ignorance or something like that? Willingly ignorant? Because it's, I would have to say he doesn't know how bad things are because he doesn't want to know how bad things are. And he even specifically mentioned that as he gets older, he's a little bit older than me. As he gets older, he kind of hardens himself up in terms of not wanting to engage in politics. And I don't really look at that political stuff and whatever. Meanwhile, he was somewhat aware of everything I was talking about, so he's paying attention somehow. When I talked about the Colombia flights, he's like, yeah, the Colombia flights. And when I talked about the firing of the IGs, I don't know. I didn't get the impression that he wasn't aware of these things. So he says he's staying away from politics because of what did he say? For just frustration, and I feel like it's a little bit of like giving up type of thing. Like he just kind of, it's everybody's corrupt. It's all corrupt. And this is how fascism, thrives, right? You get a public that they're desensitized. They're just disheartened, and they're just kind of like, our votes don't matter. Nothing matters. What you gonna do? It's how it is. It is what it is, right? Because once you get the American people to that point, then the door is wide open for fascism, man. You can do whatever you want to do because the people, their backs are broken. They don't have the will to fight. They don't have the will to even pay attention. And even if people put the facts in front of them and say, "Hey, man, look at what's happening in our government," they don't want to deal with it. They're just kind of like, whatever. So I didn't get anywhere with him in the conversation. And this is somebody I would regard as more level-headed. The other person I mentioned that I did a video about, she was the religious person. She was definitely more on the irrational side. I mean, you got religious stuff in there, and just the way she operated. Like, I couldn't have this conversation that I had with my friend today with her, because the minute that I went anywhere remotely something that's uncomfortable, like Trump might have done something that looks pretty bad, she would instantly just like, yeah, she ain't having it, man. She would just start over talking me and try to throw some haymakers or whatever at me, like, but Biden did the same thing. Like, I would not be able to sit down with her and calmly be able to explain certain things that are happening. And I'm not saying she just gotta accept what I'm saying, that it's the truth or whatever. No, I'm just saying, like, can I talk? Can I explain like what happened? She wouldn't allow me. The minute I start saying some stuff and it sounds pretty bad, she just jumped like a cat. So my buddy, he's not like that. His thing was like, he was able to sit and hear me out for the most part. But the thing is that he seems to be very desensitized and numb. So the gravity of whatever I was saying. It didn't seem to matter. Like, I feel like I could have told him, we just found out that Trump ordered a hit on Pelosi or something like that, and I feel like he would just be like, "Well, we don't know all the facts, and maybe she did something, and hey, our government kills a lot of people." You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, oh. So that was I think that was the biggest message I got, is just that numb, completely numb. It's like, I remember, what was it? I had a surgery on my finger, and they put those injections in, and you don't feel nothing, man. They could cut your finger off, and you don't even notice. Like, that's him, fully under was a local anesthesia. So I don't know what you do with that, man, because if nothing phases people, then what how do you I don't know, man, what are you supposed to do with that? It's like, imagine we're on a sinking ship, literally, right? And maybe the water's not going, it's not going out that quickly, right? And you show it to them, and they're kind of like, "Yeah, we'll be fine." And then it ends up, it's triple. It's like, gallons and gallons of water per second, and you're like, "Look at that, man!" And they're just kind of like, "Well, whatever." And then you're like, a quarter of the hull is missing, and they just kind of like, "Well, I mean, the ship seems fine," and then you're like, "Look, there's a fire in the engine room," and they're just kind of like, "Well, I'm sure it'll be fine, and there's lots of water here. The water's gonna put out the fire." It's just like, what are you supposed to do with that? If you can't articulate things and have them be like, "Oh, wow, look," like, it doesn't matter how severe something is. It's almost like everything is the same. I could have pointed out that, Trump put out a mean tweet, and he said something like, all the women in Congress are ugly, right? So it's kind of like, that's inappropriate, but it's kind of like, oh, it's just a mean tweet. I could have pointed that out, and I could have also pointed out the hit on Pelosi, and the reaction would have been the same. Like, that's what I got from it. It's almost religious, actually, because me coming from a religious family, that's like how my parents, just being Christians, it's like the way they look at sin. You know, there's this thing where a murderer and someone who's lying are the same, right? Because they've sinned. What's the Bible verse? Trump couldn't even know Bible verse. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. I don't even go to church, and I got a verse. How you like them apples? I haven't been to church in so long, and even I have a verse. Trump couldn't come up with one verse. Anyway, but yeah, that's the same philosophy where there's no levels. Everything's the same. A mean tweet and a hit on a member of Congress or whatever is kind of like, all right, guys. Let me wind down. What are you guys saying? You have to stay positive, polite to them, but no way I'll be friends with right wingers. I was polite. I was respectful. I didn't call him any names or anything like that. But I didn't put up with nonsense, right? He said nonsense. I was like, I definitely pushed back. Um, this other person, Mohammed, I don't know what you're saying, man. I see like a bunch of letters and symbols. I hope whatever you're saying is not too mean. Anyway, that's all I wanted to. That's all I wanted to talk about. There's not really more to it. I mean, that was the whole conversation. I mean, the substance of the conversation doesn't really matter. It's just, I mean, the main topics were, we talked about the Colombia thing, we talked about the firing of the IGs thing, and just in general, talked about the direction the country's going, and I even hit him with a little piece of Hitler. I want to do a video talking about that because I'm going to end on this note. Many people who they have this knee jerk reaction the minute you mention Hitler, I can guarantee you they would have been like the many people back in those days that were. We have the benefit of history and we know all the stuff that Hitler did, but there was a long time where a lot of things were going on and a lot of people in Germany didn't fully understand. There were rumors floating around and this and that, and it's kind of like, who knows? People claim that they're killing Jews or whatever, but I don't know. I think it's made up. So there was a period of time where it wasn't clear. They didn't have all the social media, whatever. So information, and Hitler was controlling a lot of the media, right? A lot of propaganda going out there. So there were a lot of people in Germany that were supporting Hitler and I guess perhaps the Nazi movement, and they didn't fully understand what was going on, the gravity of the situation. And even if they may have been hearing some rumors and deep down inside they were like, I don't know, man, something seems wrong, they still, for a period of time, continue to just be like, I don't know, man. I mean, Hitler just seems like he wants Germany to be strong again, and these Jews are a problem, and they are whatever they're doing. I'm telling you, man, a lot of these people who are have this knee jerk reaction to even mentioning Hitler, they would have been those people back then. Back in those days, they would have been the people who your neighbor comes to you and says, "Man, I don't know, man. I'm hearing that they're executing Jews." And those people today that are like, "Oh, Hitler, Hitler," they would have been the people in Germany that would have been like, "Come on, why would he do that? He's not going to do that." I'm going to do a video, and the title of the video is going to be "Hitler Wasn't a Monster." Half, I wouldn't say half clickbait. It's a little clickbait, but not really. That's a true statement. Hitler wasn't a monster. He was a human being. He did monstrous things, but he wasn't a monster. The reason why I make that distinction is because people view him, when you view him as a monster, then he's one dimensional, right? The only thing he did was kill Jews. No, he did a lot more. He had a childhood. There was things he did as a child. He had, when he was a young adult, there's things he did there. I believe he served in the military. There was a lot of other things that he did. When you only focus on the worst that he did, the danger there is someone following the same path he did, you're not going to recognize it because the only thing that you identify him with is the genocide or whatever, right? So that means a future Hitler could do exactly what Hitler did up until the bodies start hitting the floor. And then at that point, you'd be like, but by then it's too late, right? If you were to go back in time and you were in Germany, right? How many things would have happened? How many rumors would you heard? How long would things have gone along before you realized what was actually happening, right? If you were back in those days, how long would you have been in the dark and have people telling you that something seriously wrong is going on? I'm hearing about they're slaughtering people or whatever it is. There's camps. How long would you have been? I don't know. And if that happens in the future, will you wait until the bodies hit the floor before you open your eyes and say, wait a minute, what's happening? I think by then it's too late. Anyway, if it were different times, you can't compare it with our current day situation. Well, I will put my thoughts together and do a video on the topic. And what is up with this sideways video? I told it I wanted to do I wanted to do portrait, and then it made me do. I don't know, because then your comments are going sideways. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, all right, guys. Ciao.